Last week, we talked about a number of gifts God gives His people and the purpose of those gifts as ways to serve other people. I hope you took some time to complete your gifts assessment and consider the ways God might have gifted you. If you haven't already, take some time to share this with your group members and then affirm where you see each person's giftedness. Remember what 1 Corinthians 12:7 says. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. We are looking for ways each one of us can use our gifts to build up the body. Today, we're talking about our gifts in community, because remember that God gifted you to build up His church and show His grace and love to other people. You're not designed to use your gifts in isolation, but in relationship with others. And so it's important to reflect on what it means to be a part of God's family and serve others. One of my favorite passages that talks about this talks about Jesus as our example. You may remember that in week 1, where we talked about Jesus serving others the night He was arrested. In Philippians 2, we read more about Jesus as our model for service. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to His own advantage. Rather, He made Himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, He humbled Himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." There is so much we can talk about here. For one thing, we see that discovering our gifts in community involves humility. We can't serve others if we're competing with them or if we're arrogant about who we are. Instead, this passage reminds us to consider others' needs, others' gifts, and others' interests. Another interesting thing we read here is that service means stepping back from advantages, even the ones we think we're entitled to. Let's reread verses 5, 6, and 7. "In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to His own advantage. Rather, He made Himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness." If anyone had the right to consider himself better than others, it would be Jesus. I mean, He was better than others. He was God in the flesh, but He didn't use that as a way to achieve His ends. He relied on love and service to others as the way to spread His message, not force or domination. The very nature of service is humility, and Jesus modeled that when He became a man. It's one thing to read this passage. It's much harder to live it out. Today, let's talk about some concrete ways we can value others and serve others in our community. How would our church change if we all lived this way? How would your family and friendships change? How can your small group as a community serve the larger community? What is a project your group could do together? We are discovering more of who we are as we progress through this study. Now, let's discover how we can bless and serve each other.